Kang Min-jun stirred awake to sunlight slicing through floor-to-ceiling windows, his head pounding with the aftermath of celebration. Beside him, tangled in silk sheets, a woman with cascading auburn hair slept soundly. Her name was already slipping from his memory. Jessica, Jennifer. It didn't matter. What mattered was the deal. The $50 million acquisition his company, Kang Industries, had closed yesterday. The champagne, the victory, the entitlement that came with being Seoul's most powerful CEO under 40. Min-jun's phone buzzed on the marble nightstand. 17 missed calls from his wife, Esther. He silenced it without reading her messages. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. In Min-jun's world, power meant privilege, and privilege meant freedom from consequence. His marriage to Esther had been strategic from the beginning, a merger of families, a PR move that satisfied his parents and elevated his public image. She was beautiful, poised, the perfect accessory for charity galas and board meetings, but she was never supposed to matter. Min-jun dressed in yesterday's tailored suit, left a stack of cash on the dresser without waking the woman, and stepped into the private elevator. His reflection stared back at him from the polished gold doors, sharp jawline, perfectly styled black hair, eyes that had intimidated competitors into submission. He looked untouchable because he was. The elevator descended 43 floors, and with each passing level, Min-jun's confidence returned. By the time the doors opened to the hotel lobby, he'd already forgotten the woman's face entirely. His driver, Mr. Cho, stood waiting beside the black Rolls-Royce, expression carefully neutral. The old man had worked for the Kang family for 30 years and had mastered the art of seeing everything while revealing nothing. "Home, sir?" Mr. Cho asked, opening the rear door. "Yes, and Cho." Min-jun settled into the leather seat, adjusting his Patek Philippe watch. "Clear my schedule until noon. I need a shower and proper coffee before the Goldman meeting." "Of course, sir." The drive from downtown Seoul to the Kang estate in Hanamdong usually took 40 minutes. Min-jun spent it scrolling through emails, approving contracts, denying requests. His world moved at his command, and he'd built it that way deliberately. When they turned onto the private road leading to his mansion, something felt wrong. The iron gate stood open, unusual for 7 a.m. The circular driveway, normally empty except for Esther's white Mercedes, now held 3 additional vehicles: a sleek black sedan, a silver Audi, and a van with tinted windows. Min-jun's jaw tightened. "What's this?" "I don't know, sir. Mrs. Kang didn't mention any appointments." The Rolls-Royce pulled to a stop before the mansion's grand entrance. Min-jun exited without waiting for Mr. Cho, his Italian leather shoes clicking against marble as he strode through the front doors. The foyer was silent, too silent. "Esther?" His voice echoed off vaulted ceilings. No response. Min-jun moved deeper into the house, past the spiral staircase, toward the living room where he and Esther had hosted the Japanese investors just last week. Everything looked pristine, untouched, until he noticed the manila envelope on the coffee table. Beside it sat a USB drive. And behind both, in the cream leather armchair his mother had imported from Milan, sat Esther. She looked different. Gone was the soft, accommodating woman who'd smiled through his lies for 3 years. This version of Esther wore a tailored black suit that screamed authority, her long dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her makeup was flawless but cold, red lips that didn't smile, eyes lined with precision. She looked like she was attending a funeral. His. "Welcome home, Min-jun." Her voice was frost over steel. "We need to talk." Min-jun loosened his tie, forcing a charming smile, the one that usually disarmed opponents. "Esther, darling, I know I should have called, but the Goldman deal went late and—" "Stop." She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. The single word cut through his rehearsed excuse like a blade through silk. She picked up a remote control from the armrest and pressed a button. The 85-inch television, mounted above the fireplace, flickered to life. What Min-jun saw next made his blood run cold. The screen showed grainy security footage timestamped 11:47 p.m. last night. The Grand Lexington Hotel's private elevator. Min-jun recognized himself immediately, stumbling slightly, the auburn-haired woman's arms wrapped around his neck as they kissed. The angle shifted. Now they were in the hallway outside Suite 4309, his hands on her waist, her laugh breathy and eager. Another angle, inside the suite, champagne glasses, clothes discarded on Italian marble floors. Jesus Christ! Min-jun lunged for the remote, but Esther was faster. She stood, clicking the screen off with calm precision. There's 47 minutes of footage. Should I continue, or have you seen enough? His mind raced. How did she get hotel security footage? The Grand Lexington was owned by the H. Wang family, his business partners. This shouldn't be possible. Esther, listen to me. No. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the manicured gardens. You listen to me. For 3 years I've played the role you assigned me, the perfect wife, the gracious hostess, the woman who looked the other way while you paraded your conquests through 5-star hotels across Seoul. If this is about last night. This isn't about last night. Esther turned, and Min-jun saw something in her eyes he'd never noticed before. Intelligence, strategy, danger. This is about every night, every lie, every woman whose name you didn't bother remembering. She moved to the coffee table, picked up the manila envelope with 2 fingers as if it disgusted her. Inside this envelope are divorce papers. My attorneys have already filed with the Seoul Family Court. The USB drive contains copies of security footage from 17 different hotels over the past 18 months. It also includes financial records showing your use of company funds to pay for these indiscretions. Min-jun's hands clenched into fists. You're blackmailing me. I'm liberating myself. Esther's smile was arctic. But I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers now, accept my settlement terms, and this footage stays private. Or refuse, and by tomorrow morning, every news outlet in Korea will have copies, along with documentation showing how Korea's most eligible bachelor-turned-devoted husband is actually an embezzler who's been stealing from his own company to fund his affairs. That's insane. I haven't embezzled anything. Haven't you? Esther tilted her head. Those suites at the Grand Lexington, charged to Kang Industries' entertainment budget. The jewelry you bought for, let's see. She pulled a paper from the envelope, scanned it. Ah yes, for Min-jae Park, your secretary. That came from the Executive Discretionary Fund. Shall I continue? Min-jun's jaw worked silently. She was right. He'd been careless, entitled, certain that his position made him immune to scrutiny. But embezzlement, that was a stretch. Those were legitimate business expenses, just creatively categorized. No court would accept this, he said, forcing confidence into his voice. My lawyers would destroy you. Would they? Esther walked closer, and Min-jun caught the scent of her perfume, the same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn on their wedding day. Let me tell you what happens if you choose that path. First, your mother finds out, not from tabloids, from me personally. I'll sit in her tea room and show her every photograph, every receipt, every text message. Min-jun flinched. His mother, the formidable Madame Kang, had been thrilled when he'd married Esther. She saw her as the daughter she'd never had, elegant, educated, from a respectable family, if she knew the truth. Second, Esther continued, I hold a press conference. I'll stand before every camera in Seoul and tell them how Korea's golden CEO treats women, how he views marriage as a business transaction and fidelity as optional. Your investors will love that. You wouldn't. Try me, her eyes flashed. I spent 3 years being underestimated by you. Don't make that mistake now. The room fell silent except for the antique grandfather clock ticking in the corner, a gift from his father before he'd passed, leaving Minjun the empire at 28. "What do you want?" Minjun asked finally, his voice tight. Esther returned to the coffee table, extracted a document from the envelope, and laid it flat. "My terms are simple. I want the Hanamdong penthouse, the one your company just acquired last month. I want $20 million in liquid assets transferred within 72 hours. I want my name removed from all Kang Industries holdings and partnerships, and," she paused, her finger hovering over the final paragraph, "I want 40% of your personal stock in the company." 40%, Minjun's laugh was bitter. "That's not a divorce settlement, that's a hostile takeover." "Call it what you want." Esther picked up a Mont Blanc pen, his pen, the one he used to sign billion-dollar deals, and held it out. "These are my terms, non-negotiable." Minjun stared at the document. 40% of his stock would shift the balance of power in Kang Industries. Combined with the board members who'd never fully trusted him, it would give Esther influence, possibly control. She wasn't just leaving him, she was positioning herself to haunt him. "And if I refuse?" Esther pressed the remote again. The television flickered back to life, but this time it showed a different image. A press release draft with the headline "Kang Minjun" behind the billionaire's mask. Below it a scheduled send time, 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. "If you refuse by this time tomorrow, you'll be a cautionary tale instead of a CEO." Esther's voice was steady, clinical. "Your choice, Minjun, sign willingly, or I'll take what I'm owed through the courts and destroy everything you've built in the process." Minjun's mind worked frantically, searching for leverage, for escape routes, for the power he'd always wielded so effortlessly. "You need me to sign this now," he gestured to the papers, "without my attorneys reviewing it." "Your attorneys can review a copy after you sign. I'm not interested in negotiation." Esther checked her watch, a vintage Cartier he'd bought her on their first anniversary, back when he'd still pretended to care. "You have until noon. That gives you," she paused, 4 hours and 43 minutes. "This is extortion. This is consequences." Esther's expression didn't waver, "something you've avoided your entire life." Minjun wanted to rage, to throw her out, to call security and have her removed from his property. But a calculating part of his brain, the part that had built Kang Industries into a powerhouse, recognized the trap she'd laid. She'd planned this perfectly. The evidence was damning. The timing was strategic, right after his biggest acquisition, when negative press could tank investor confidence, and the threat to involve his mother was particularly vicious. But there had to be a way out. "Who helped you?" Minjun asked suddenly. "You couldn't have gotten that security footage alone. The financial records, the documentation, someone's backing you." For the first time, Esther's smile reached her eyes. "Does it matter?" "Tell me." "You really want to know?" She walked to the window again, her silhouette framed against the morning light. "Do you remember attorney Park Jae-hoon, the lawyer you beat in court 3 years ago, the one whose firm went bankrupt after Kang Industries withdrew funding?" Minjun remembered. Park had represented a small manufacturing company Minjun had crushed during a hostile acquisition. Collateral damage in the pursuit of expansion. "He's been waiting for an opportunity to return the favor," Esther said. "When I approached him 6 months ago with evidence of your affairs, he was very interested in helping me build a case." 6 months, Minjun's voice rose. "You've been planning this for 6 months. "Longer, actually." Esther turned back to face him. "I started collecting evidence the day I found the first hotel receipt in your jacket pocket. That was 14 months ago. But I didn't have enough for a clean victory until Attorney Park showed me how to follow the money trail." The realization hit Minjun like ice water. All those months she'd smiled at dinner parties, hosted his business associates, played the devoted wife, she'd been plotting, documenting, building her case with the patience of a master strategist. He'd underestimated her completely. "There's also someone else you should know about," Esther continued, clearly enjoying the revelation. "Do you remember Detective Choi Sang-woo, the investigator your company hired last year to handle that corporate espionage case?" Min-jun nodded warily. "He's very good at finding information, and very disappointed by how Kang Industries treated him after the case closed, refusing to pay his full fee, blacklisting him from other contracts." Esther's smile widened. "He was happy to use his skills on my behalf. That's how I got the hotel footage. Turns out, security directors are more cooperative when you offer them proper compensation instead of threats." Min-jun felt the walls closing in. She hadn't just planned this divorce. She'd assembled a team of people he'd wronged, people hungry for retribution. "You've made a lot of enemies, Min-jun," Esther said softly. "I just gave them a common cause." The grandfather clock chimed 8 times, each note resonating through the tension. "I need to think," Min-jun said finally. 4 hours isn't enough time to." 4 hours and 37 minutes now, Esther corrected. "And you don't need to think, you need to choose, sign or suffer." Min-jun grabbed the papers, scanning them with desperate speed. The terms were exactly as she'd stated, brutal but legally airtight. Attorney Park's work, no doubt. "What happens after I sign?" Min-jun asked. "You disappear, take your money and vanish." "Not exactly." Esther crossed to the mahogany bar cart, poured herself a glass of water with practiced ease. "I'll remain a shareholder in Kang Industries, a very active one. You'll see me at board meetings, investor calls, strategic planning sessions. Every decision you make, I'll be watching." "Why?" The word came out raw. "If you hate me this much, why not just take the money and leave?" Esther took a slow sip of water, considering her answer. When she spoke, her voice carried an edge of something Min-jun couldn't quite identify. Not anger, not hatred, but something colder. "Disappointment. Because you need to learn that actions have consequences. Because there are hundreds of women who have been treated exactly like I have, dismissed, underestimated, used, and they deserve to see that sometimes the powerful fall." She set the glass down with a soft click. "And because I'm actually very good at business, Min-jun, your company will be stronger with me involved, whether you can admit that or not." Min-jun stared at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and saw her clearly for perhaps the first time in their marriage. She wasn't the decorative accessory he'd married. She was intelligent, strategic, ruthless when necessary. Everything he'd claimed to value in business partners but had never recognized in the woman who'd shared his home. "How did I not see this?" he asked, more to himself than to her. "Because you weren't looking." Esther's expression softened fractionally, and for a moment Min-jun glimpsed the woman he'd married, before the lies, before the betrayals, before everything had calcified into this Cold War. "I tried to be a real partner to you, Min-jun, in the beginning. Do you remember?" He did, though he didn't want to admit it. In the first months of their marriage, Esther had attended every board meeting, studied Kang Industries' portfolio, offered insights on deals. She had an MBA from Yonsei University, experience in corporate strategy. But Min-jun had dismissed her contributions, patronized her suggestions, excluded her from real decision-making. He'd wanted a wife who enhanced his image, not a partner who challenged his authority. "That was your first mistake," Esther said, reading his silence correctly. "You thought marriage meant possession, but I was never yours to own, Min-jun. I was always my own person. You just forgot to notice." The penthouse elevator chimed, an incoming arrival. Esther glanced at her watch. "That will be my attorney. I invited him to witness your decision, ensure everything is legally binding." The elevator doors opened, revealing a man in his 50s with steel-gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Attorney Park Jae-hoon carried a leather briefcase and wore an expression of professional neutrality, but Min-jun caught the satisfaction in his eyes. "Mr. Kang." Park gave a slight bow, just formal enough to be respectful, just casual enough to be insulting. "A pleasure to see you again." Min-jun didn't respond. Park set his briefcase on the coffee table, extracted documents, and arranged them with methodical precision. "Mrs. Kang has outlined the terms of your separation agreement. I'm here to notarize your signature and ensure both parties understand their obligations." "I understand perfectly," Min-jun said through clenched teeth. "Excellent." Park produced a document. "Then let's begin with the financial disclosures. Mrs. Kang is entitled to a complete accounting of all marital assets, including—" "I know what she's entitled to." Min-jun interrupted. "Let's skip the performance and get to the signature." Esther moved beside Attorney Park, her presence a silent reminder of the alliance she'd built. "Before you sign, Min-jun, I want to be clear about one thing. This isn't personal revenge. This is me reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. You can see it as defeat, or you can see it as liberation, for both of us." "Liberation," Min-jun repeated bitterly. "Is that what you call taking half my fortune?" "I call it fair compensation for 3 years of my life wasted on a man who never saw my value." Esther's voice remained steady. "Sign the papers, Min-jun, accept that this chapter is over." Min-jun looked at the Mont Blanc pen Park held out to him. 3 years of marriage, ending in a stranger's living room with lawyers and ultimatums. This wasn't how he'd imagined his life unfolding. But then again, he'd never imagined consequences at all. His phone buzzed. A text from his secretary, Mr. Goldman, arriving at 11 a.m. for final contract review. "Needs your signature on acquisition documents." The acquisition, $50 million, the deal that had led him to the Grand Lexington, to the woman whose name he couldn't remember to this moment. If Esther's press release went public before noon, Goldman would withdraw. The acquisition would collapse. The board would demand answers. His mother would see the footage. Everything would unravel. Min-jun took the pen. "Where do I sign?" Attorney Park flipped to the final page of the divorce agreement, pointing to a line marked with a yellow tab. "Here, Mr. Kang, and initial each section I've marked." Min-jun's hand hesitated above the paper. This was real. Once his signature touched that line, his marriage would be over. Esther would own 40% of his personal stock. $20 million would transfer out of his accounts. The penthouse, the property he'd planned to develop into luxury condos, would become hers. But if he didn't sign? He pictured his mother's face when she saw the hotel footage. Imagine the press conference Esther would hold, her composed voice detailing every affair, every lie. Saw his investors backing away, his board calling for his resignation, his empire crumbling because he couldn't keep his zipper closed. Pride versus survival. Min-jun signed. His signature, the same bold scrawl that had closed billion-dollar deals, approved mergers, sealed partnerships, now ended his marriage. He initialed each section mechanically. Asset division, stock transfer, financial obligations, confidentiality clauses. Attorney Park witnessed each signature, stamping them with his notary seal. "The property deed for the Hanamdong penthouse," Park said, producing another document. "Your signature transfers ownership to Mrs. Kang effective immediately." Min-jun signed. "The stock transfer agreement, relinquishing 40% of your personal Kang Industries shares to Mrs. Kang." Min-jun signed. And finally, the non-disclosure agreement, stating that both parties will maintain confidentiality regarding the circumstances of this divorce. Min-jun paused. "Both parties, so you can't release that footage regardless." "Correct," Esther said. "Once you sign the NDA, I'm legally bound to keep the evidence private, but only if you uphold your end of the agreement. Miss a single payment, contest any terms, and the NDA becomes void." It was a leash, a permanent threat hanging over him. Min-jun signed anyway. Park gathered the documents, organizing them into folders with practiced efficiency. "I'll file these with the court today. The divorce will be finalized within 60 days, pending standard processing. Mrs. Kang, you'll receive confirmation once the stock transfer is complete." "Thank you, Attorney Park." Esther shook his hand, then turned to Min-jun. "You can keep the house. I never liked it anyway, too many ghosts." She picked up her Hermes handbag from the armchair, checking her appearance in the antique mirror above the fireplace. The woman reflected there looked victorious, poised, powerful, free. "Goodbye, Min-jun." She didn't offer her hand, didn't lean in for a farewell kiss. Just those two words, delivered with the finality of a closing door. Attorney Park followed her to the elevator. The doors slid shut and they were gone. Min-jun stood alone in the living room that had hosted 100 dinner parties, where he and Esther had smiled for photographers, where they'd built the illusion of a perfect marriage. The manila envelope still sat on the coffee table, along with the USB drive containing evidence of his infidelity. Min-jun grabbed both, carried them to the fireplace, and fed them to the flames. Watching the paper curl and blacken felt like victory, but it was hollow. The evidence was destroyed, but copies existed. Esther had made sure of that. He'd never be free of what she knew, what she could reveal if he stepped out of line. His phone buzzed again. His mother, "Min-jun, I'm coming over for lunch." Esther said she has news to share with the family. Ice flooded Min-jun's veins. She was going to tell his mother. Not the details. The NDA prevented that, but the basic fact of the divorce. And his mother would demand explanations, would interrogate him about what went wrong, would blame him for losing the daughter-in-law she'd adored. He texted back, "Mother, now isn't a good time." Her response was immediate. "I didn't ask if it was convenient. I'll be there at 1 o'clock. Min-jun poured himself 3 fingers of scotch from the bar cart, downing it in one burning swallow. His empire was intact for now, but Esther had succeeded in ways he was only beginning to understand. She'd taken his money, his stock, his property, but more than that, she'd taken his certainty. For the first time in his life, Kang Min-jun felt the ground beneath him shift. The Goldman meeting at 11 o'clock was torture. Min-jun sat in Kang Industries' top-floor conference room, forcing smiles and handshakes while his mind replayed the morning's events. He signed the acquisition documents, another signature, another binding contract, while Mr. Goldman praised his business acumen. "You're building something impressive, Mr. Kang," Goldman said, clapping Min-jun's shoulder. "Your father would be proud." Min-jun doubted that. His father had been ruthless in business but faithful in marriage, a distinction Min-jun had never understood the importance of until today. After Goldman left, Min-jun's secretary, Min-jae Park, the same woman Esther had mentioned, the one he'd bought jewelry for, approached his desk with nervous energy. "Sir, there's something you should know," Min-jae said quietly. "This morning I received a severance package from Mrs. Kang." Min-jun's jaw clenched. "What kind of severance package?" "6 months' salary and a recommendation letter." Min-jae placed an envelope on his desk. "The letter says I'm being released from my position to pursue other opportunities. It's generous, but I didn't ask for it." Min-jun opened the envelope, scanned the letter. Esther's signature at the bottom, along with the Kang Industries HR stamp. She was cleaning house, removing the women Min-jun had been involved with, severing ties that could become future liabilities. "When does this take effect?" Min-jun asked. "End of the month, sir." Min-jae hesitated. "I wanted to thank you for the opportunities you've given me, but I also wanted to say, Mrs. Kang didn't have to be kind about this. She could have fired me outright, but she protected my reputation." Min-jun said nothing. After Min-jae left, he called down to HR. "How many severance packages went out today?" "5, sir," the HR director replied. "All approved by Mrs. Kang this morning before," he paused, "before the divorce filing." 5 women. 5 affairs Esther had documented, tracked, and now eliminated from his professional life. She wasn't just divorcing him, she was scorching the earth. At 1 o'clock sharp, Minjun's mother arrived at the mansion. Madame Kang was 73 but carried herself like royalty, spine straight, expression imperious, designer handbag worth more than most people's cars. She'd built the Kang family fortune alongside her husband, and everyone in Seoul knew better than to cross her. "Where is Esther?" were her first words. Minjun stood in the foyer, feeling like a child about to be disciplined. "Mother, I know she's divorcing you. Minjun, she called me this morning and told me herself." Madame Kang removed her gloves with sharp, precise movements. "What I want to know is why." "It's complicated. Don't insult my intelligence." His mother walked past him into the living room, settling into the same armchair Esther had occupied hours earlier. "I've been married for 47 years. I understand exactly how marriages fall apart. What I don't understand is how my son could be stupid enough to throw away a woman like Esther." Minjun had prepared a dozen excuses, rationalizations, ways to spin the narrative. But standing before his mother's withering gaze, all of them died on his tongue. "I made mistakes," he said finally. "Mistakes?" Madame Kang's laugh was sharp. "That's what you call it. Esther was everything this family needed, intelligent, gracious, capable. She could have been your partner in building this empire. Instead, you treated her like decoration." "You don't know." "I know enough." His mother's eyes narrowed. "I know that you've been following in your father's footsteps in business but learning none of his wisdom in marriage. Your father may have been demanding, but he honored our partnership. He understood that respect is the foundation of power." Minjun felt something crack in his chest. "Father had affairs. You knew about them." "Yes, I knew." Madame Kang's voice was ice. "And do you know what your father did when I confronted him? He stopped. He apologized. He spent the next 20 years proving I was his priority. That's the difference between a man and a boy. Minjun, a man takes responsibility. A boy makes excuses." The words landed like blows. "Esther deserves better than you," his mother continued. "And frankly, I'm glad she's finally realized it. That girl has more steel in her spine than I gave her credit for." "She's taking 40% of my stock," Minjun said. "She's positioned herself to influence every decision I make." "Good." Madame Kang stood, adjusting her jacket. "Maybe having someone watching will teach you to think before you act. Your father left you this company because he believed you could lead it. But leadership isn't just about making money. Minjun, it's about integrity, honor, values you've clearly forgotten." She walked to the door, then paused. "Esther invited me to lunch next week," Madame Kang said. "I accepted. I intend to maintain my relationship with her, regardless of your divorce. I suggest you make peace with that." The door closed behind her with quiet finality. Minjun was alone again in the mansion that suddenly felt cavernous, empty, haunted by the ghost of who he'd thought he was. 3 days later, Minjun faced the Kang Industries board of directors. The conference room was silent as he outlined the Goldman acquisition, a triumph that should have been his moment of victory. Instead, it felt like a defense. Because sitting at the opposite end of the table, in a seat that had been empty for 3 years, was Esther. She'd exercised her rights as a 40% shareholder to attend board meetings, and she'd come prepared. "The Goldman acquisition is impressive," Esther said when Minjun finished his presentation. "But I have questions about the financing structure." Minjun tensed. "What kind of questions?" "You're leveraging Kang Industries' real estate holdings as collateral for the purchase. That puts our core assets at risk if the acquisition underperforms." Esther slid a document across the table. "I've had my team analyze the projections. They're optimistic at best, reckless at worst." The other board members, 3 senior executives who'd served under Minjun's father, leaned forward, interested. My projections are based on market research, Min-jun said carefully. Research that assumes 15% growth year-over-year in a sector that's averaged 8% for the past decade, Esther countered. I'm not saying the acquisition is bad. I'm saying the risk analysis is incomplete. She was right. Min-jun had pushed the deal through quickly, eager to close before competitors could interfere. He'd glossed over potential downsides, confident his instincts were correct. But instincts weren't data. What do you propose? Asked Director Kim, the eldest board member. Renegotiate the collateral terms, Esther said. Use a mix of assets instead of concentrating risk in real estate. It'll take another week, but it protects the company if things go wrong. Director Kim nodded slowly. That's prudent. Min-jun wanted to argue, to reassert his authority, to remind everyone who'd built this company into what it was. But he could see the other directors agreeing with Esther, impressed by her analysis. She'd outmaneuvered him in his own boardroom. Fine, Min-jun said tightly. I'll have legal renegotiate the terms. Esther smiled, polite, professional, victorious. Thank you, Chairman Kang. I'm sure this will strengthen our partnership with Goldman in the long run. Our partnership, as if she'd been part of the deal from the beginning. The meeting continued, but Min-jun barely heard it. He watched Esther contribute insights on 3 other agenda items, each suggestion thoughtful and well-researched. The board members listened to her, respected her, treated her as an equal. Everything Min-jun had refused to do during their marriage. When the meeting adjourned, Director Kim approached Min-jun privately. Your ex-wife is quite impressive, Kim said quietly. Your father would have appreciated her strategic mind. She's trying to undermine me, Min-jun replied. No, Kim's expression was serious. She's trying to protect the company. There's a difference. Learn to recognize it, Min-jun, or you'll find yourself without allies when you need them most. Min-jun sat in his office at midnight, the Seoul skyline glittering beyond floor-to-ceiling windows like a galaxy of ambition. He'd spent the past week since the board meeting analyzing Esther's strategy, searching for weaknesses, plotting his counterattack. The divorce was finalized. The stock transfer was complete, but the war, that was just beginning. His phone buzzed, a secure message from an unlisted number. I have information about your ex-wife. Meet me at Café Momento tomorrow, 2 p.m. Come alone, J. Min-jun stared at the message. Only one person used that initial in his network. Young Hae-won, a private investigator who specialized in corporate espionage and wasn't too concerned about legal boundaries. Min-jun had hired him once before to dig up dirt on a competitor. The results had been devastatingly effective. He typed back, I'll be there. If Esther wanted to play games with power, Min-jun would remind her why he'd built this empire in the first place. He hadn't survived Seoul's cutthroat business world by accepting defeat gracefully. Café Momento was a discreet establishment in Gangnam, the kind of place where Seoul's elite conducted business they didn't want recorded. Private booths, soundproofed walls, staff trained to see nothing and remember less. Min-jun arrived exactly at 2 o'clock. Wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, unnecessary disguises perhaps, but caution had become his new religion. Young Hae-won sat in the back corner booth, a manila folder on the table between them. He was 40-something, nondescript in the way only professional investigators could be, forgettable face, average build, eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Kang, Youngdon Stan didn't offer his hand. Thank you for coming. Min-jun slid into the booth across from him. What do you have? Young pushed the folder forward. Your ex-wife is more interesting than I expected. Min-jun opened it. Inside were photographs, Esther meeting with various people over the past month. Attorney Park Jae-hoon, as expected. Director Kim from the Kang Industries board. But also others Min-jun didn't recognize. A woman in her 30s with short silver hair, a man in an expensive suit outside the Four Seasons, an elderly gentleman who looked vaguely familiar. "Who are these people?" Minjun asked. The woman is Yoon Da-hee, a venture capitalist who specializes in tech startups. The man is Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Dynamics. They're developing AI software for corporate management. And the elderly gentleman, Young paused for effect. "That's your grandfather's former business partner, Lee Ti-yang." Minjun's blood ran cold. Lee Ti-yang had helped Minjun's grandfather build the original Kang Industries 40 years ago before a falling out had split the partnership. Lee had gone on to build his own conglomerate, smaller than Kang Industries but still formidable. The Lee and Kang families hadn't spoken in 2 decades. "Why is Esther meeting with Lee Ti-yang?" Minjun demanded. "That's the interesting part." Young pulled out another document, financial records, investment statements, corporate filings. 3 days ago, your ex-wife established a private investment firm called Stella Holdings. She's already secured $50 million in backing from Lee Ti-yang and a consortium of investors who, how shall I put this delicately, don't particularly like you. Minjun's hands clenched around the papers. "She's building a competitor company." "Worse," Young said. "She's building a company specifically designed to outmaneuver Kang Industries. Look at her first investments." Minjun scanned the list. Software development, real estate tech, sustainable manufacturing. Every sector Kang Industries had identified for future expansion. Esther wasn't just leaving him. She was preparing to beat him at his own game. "There's more," Young continued. "She's been recruiting. 3 of your top executives received offers from Stella Holdings last week. Better salary, equity packages, and, according to my source, the opportunity to work for a CEO who actually listens to their ideas." The insult landed like a physical blow. "Who's she trying to recruit?" Minjun asked. Young slid another page across. Minjun recognized the names immediately. Sarah Cho, head of Kang Industries Innovation Division. Michael Park, their top financial analyst. And worst of all, Director Kim's daughter, Kim Jaya, a rising star in corporate strategy. "Have any of them accepted?" Minjun's voice was tight. "Not yet, but they're considering it. Apparently, Mrs. Kang, sorry, Ms. Lee, she's using her maiden name now, has a reputation for treating employees like partners rather than assets." Another calculated dig at Minjun's management style. "What else?" Minjun asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Young hesitated, which was never a good sign. "There's a rumor, unconfirmed, but from a reliable source, that she's planning to attend the Asian Business Summit next month, the one where you're scheduled to give the keynote address." The Asian Business Summit was the most prestigious gathering of CEOs and investors in the region. Minjun had been invited to speak about innovation and leadership, a platform that would solidify his reputation as one of Korea's top business minds. If Esther showed up with her new company, her new investors, her new vision, she would steal his spotlight again. Minjun closed the folder, his mind racing through options. He could try to block her recruitment efforts, but that would look desperate. He could attempt to undermine her relationships with investors, but Lee Ti-yang was too well connected to sabotage easily. Or he could do something Esther wouldn't expect. "How much do you know about Stella Holdings' funding structure?" Minjun asked. Young smiled slightly, the expression of a man who'd anticipated the question. "Enough to know that Lee Ti-yang's investment is conditional. If Stella Holdings doesn't show profitability within 18 months, he can pull his backing and dissolve the company." There it was, the vulnerability. Esther had built an impressive foundation, but it was untested. New companies failed all the time, especially ones built on revenge rather than solid business fundamentals. Minjun just needed to ensure she failed faster. "I need you to monitor Stella Holdings' activities," Min-jun said. "Every deal they pursue, every client they court, every move they make. I want to know about it before it happens." "That's going to be expensive," Young warned. "I don't care about the cost." Min-jun pulled out his checkbook, wrote a number with several zeros. "I care about results." Young pocketed the check. "Consider it done." 2 weeks later, Min-jun stood in Kang Industries' top-floor conference room, rehearsing his keynote speech for the Asian Business Summit. His communications director, Rachel Kim, watched from the back row, tablet in hand. "You're losing them in the third section," she said. "Too much jargon, not enough story." Min-jun bit back frustration. He'd given hundreds of speeches, addressed thousands of investors. He didn't need coaching. But Rachel was right. The speech felt hollow, a recitation of achievements without heart. "What would you suggest?" Min-jun asked. Rachel approached the podium, scrolling through her notes. "Talk about failure, about what you've learned from mistakes. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with authenticity." Authenticity. The word tasted bitter. Min-jun's entire brand was built on projecting invincibility. Admitting mistakes would undermine that carefully crafted image. "I'll think about it," Min-jun said, which they both knew meant no. Rachel sighed. "Sir, I need to tell you something. I received an offer from Stella Holdings yesterday." Min-jun's stomach dropped, and "I turned it down." Rachel met his gaze steadily. "But I wanted you to know that Ms. Lee is offering competitive packages, and she's building something exciting. People are paying attention." "People like you?" Min-jun asked sharply. "People like everyone," Rachel replied. "She's got momentum, vision, and frankly, after 3 years of watching her navigate your social life with grace, a lot of us respect what she's doing now." The truth in Rachel's words stung more than the content. "Is there anything else?" Min-jun asked coldly. Rachel hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Ms. Lee is also speaking at the summit. She's been added to a panel on disruptive leadership in male-dominated industries. It's scheduled right after your keynote." Of course it was. Esther had positioned herself perfectly, letting Min-jun take the main stage, then following up with her own narrative of transformation and empowerment. She'd steal his thunder without directly confronting him. It was brilliant strategy, and Min-jun hated how much he admired it. That evening, Min-jun received an unexpected visitor at his office. Director Kim arrived without appointment, his expression grave. "We need to talk," Min-jun privately. They moved to Min-jun's personal conference room, the one without recording devices or witnesses. "I'm going to be direct," Director Kim said, settling into a leather chair. "Your ex-wife approached my daughter with a job offer, an excellent offer, one that Jaya is seriously considering." Min-jun had known this was coming, but hearing it confirmed still felt like betrayal. "What did you tell her?" "I told her to make her own decision." Kim's expression was unreadable. Jaya is 28 years old, brilliant, and deserves to work somewhere her talents are recognized. If that's Stella Holdings, so be it. "You're supposed to be on my side," Min-jun said. "I'm on Kang Industries' side," Kim corrected. "Which means I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. You're treating this divorce like a business war, and that's going to destroy the company your father built." "Esther started this." "Esther ended a marriage that was already dead," Kim interrupted. "What she's doing now is building her own future. You're the one who's making it personal." Min-jun stood, packing to the window. Seoul sprawled below him, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere out there, Esther was in her new office, planning her next move. "What do you suggest I do?" Min-jun asked. "Let her take everything I've built." "I suggest you remember why you built it in the first place." Kim joined him at the window. "Your father started Kang Industries with a vision: create value, treat people fairly, leave a legacy. You've achieved the first goal. You failed at the second, and now the third is in jeopardy. My employees are loyal. Your employees are talented professionals who will go wherever they're respected, Kim said bluntly. Esther understands that. She's offering them partnership, equity, voice. You're offering them paychecks and authority. Which do you think they'll choose? Min-jun had no answer. Kim placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture more fatherly than professional. There's still time to change course, Min-jun, not with Esther, that ship has sailed. But with the company, with your legacy, with who you want to be. The question is whether you're willing to do the work. After Kim left, Min-jun sat alone in the darkened office for hours. He thought about his father, who'd built Kang Industries from nothing. About his mother, who'd stood beside her husband through decades of challenges. About Esther, who tried to be his partner before he'd pushed her away. For the first time since the divorce, Min-jun allowed himself to feel something other than anger. He felt regret. The Asian Business Summit took place at the Grand Hyatt in Singapore, a 3-day conference attended by CEOs, investors, and media from across the region. Min-jun arrived early, checking into the presidential suite and reviewing his keynote speech for the 100th time. He'd taken Rachel's advice reluctantly, adding a section about challenges and growth, though it still felt like exposing a wound. On the second day, an hour before his keynote, Min-jun's phone buzzed with a message from Young Hae-won. Stella Holdings just closed a major deal, partnership with Chen Dynamics for AI-powered corporate analytics. Press release going out tomorrow. This will be big. Min-jun's jaw clenched. Marcus Chen, the CEO Esther had been photographed with, she'd secured him as a partner. Gaining access to cutting-edge technology that would give Stella Holdings a significant competitive advantage. She was moving faster than he'd anticipated. Min-jun pocketed his phone and headed to the main auditorium. 2,000 attendees filled the space, executives in tailored suits, investors with hungry eyes, journalists ready to capture the next big story. The summit organizer, a woman named Patricia Lee, greeted Min-jun backstage. "Mr. Kang, we're thrilled to have you. Your keynote is one of our most anticipated sessions." "Thank you," Min-jun said automatically. "I should mention," Patricia added, "Ms. Esther Lee requested a brief meeting with you before her panel. She's in the green room if you have a moment." Min-jun's first instinct was to refuse, but curiosity, and perhaps something deeper, made him nod. The green room was quiet, decorated in neutral tones designed to calm nervous speakers. Esther sat in a corner chair, reviewing notes on her tablet. She wore a navy blue suit that projected authority without aggression, her hair styled in soft waves. She looked like a CEO. Min-jun, she stood when he entered, offering a professional smile. "Thank you for meeting me." "What do you want?" Min-jun asked, more harshly than intended. Esther didn't flinch. "I wanted to tell you personally about the Chen Dynamics partnership before the press release goes out. Professional courtesy." "Courtesy," Min-jun repeated. "Is that what we're calling this?" "We're calling this business." Esther set her tablet down. "I'm building Stella Holdings into a competitor, yes, but I'm not trying to destroy you, Min-jun. I'm trying to succeed on my own terms. By recruiting my employees and stealing my deals. By offering talented people better opportunities and pursuing partnerships you ignored," Esther corrected. "Chen approached you 6 months ago with his AI platform. You turned him down because you didn't think corporate analytics needed innovation. I disagreed." Min-jun remembered the meeting. Marcus Chen had pitched his software enthusiastically, but Min-jun had dismissed it as unnecessary expense. Another mistake born of arrogance. "Why are you telling me this?" Min-jun asked. Esther studied him with those intelligent eyes that had first attracted him years ago, before he'd stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as decoration. "Because despite everything, I don't hate you," Esther said quietly. "I'm disappointed in who you became. I'm angry about how you treated me, but I don't hate you. And I think, somewhere underneath the ego and the entitlement, there's still the man I married. The one who cared about building something meaningful. That man gave you millions of dollars and a stock portfolio, Minjun said bitterly. That man gave me a divorce, Esther replied. The money was just compensation for wasted time. She picked up her tablet, preparing to leave. Your keynote is in 10 minutes. I hope it goes well. And Minjun, she paused at the door. Try to actually mean what you say up there. People can tell the difference between performance and truth. Then she was gone, leaving Minjun alone with the weight of her words. Minjun stood at the podium, 2,000 faces staring up at him expectantly. He'd given this speech 100 times in his mind, polished, perfect, projecting the image of a CEO who had everything figured out. But standing here now, after weeks of divorce proceedings and board battles and midnight soul-searching, the prepared words felt like ash in his mouth. Minjun looked down at his notes, then made a decision that terrified him. He set them aside. Good afternoon, he began, voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. I'm Kang Minjun, CEO of Kang Industries, and I'm here to talk to you about failure. A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. Not business failure, though I've had my share of deals that didn't pan out. I want to talk about personal failure, about the ways we succeed in the boardroom while failing in the aspects of life that actually matter. Minjun caught sight of Esther in the front row, her expression unreadable. 3 months ago, my wife divorced me, he continued. She had every reason to. I was unfaithful, dismissive, and arrogant. I treated our marriage like a business transaction instead of a partnership. I thought my success in building Kang Industries excused my failures as a husband. The auditorium was silent now, every person leaning forward. I was wrong, Minjun said simply, and the consequences of that wrongness have cost me more than I realized. Not just my marriage, though that loss is significant, but my clarity of purpose, my connection to the values my father taught me, my understanding of what leadership actually means. He paused, letting the words settle. Real leadership isn't about authority or control. It's about creating an environment where talented people can thrive. It's about listening to perspectives that challenge your assumptions. It's about admitting when you're wrong and having the courage to change course. Minjun glanced at his discarded notes. I came here today to talk about innovation and market strategy, but the truth is, the most important innovation I need to implement is personal. I need to innovate the way I lead, the way I value the people around me, the way I define success. He saw Director Kim in the audience, nodding slightly. My ex-wife Esther Lee, who many of you will hear from later today, showed me what real strength looks like. She didn't accept the role I'd assigned her. She demanded respect, claimed her power, and built something new when I refused to see her value. That's not revenge. That's leadership. Esther's eyes widened slightly, the first crack in her composed expression. I don't know if I can become the leader I should have been all along, Minjun admitted. But I'm going to try. Not because it's good for business, though it probably will be, but because it's the right thing to do. Because the people who work for me, who work with me, deserve a CEO who sees their humanity, not just their productivity. He took a breath. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Esther, for teaching me what I was too blind to learn on my own. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. Minjun left the stage, hands shaking, wondering if he just destroyed his reputation or saved it. After the keynote, after the journalists and the handshakes and the networking sessions, Minjun found himself on the hotel's rooftop terrace as the sun set over Singapore. He didn't hear Esther approach until she spoke. That was brave, she said, joining him at the railing. Minjun turned, surprised. I thought you'd be preparing for your panel. It doesn't start for another hour. Esther looked out at the city lights beginning to glow in the twilight. I wanted to talk to you, Really talk, without lawyers or board members or agendas. About what? About whether you meant what you said in there. Esther's voice was soft but serious, or whether it was just good PR. Min-jun considered lying, spinning the speech as strategy, but Esther deserved better than that. Both, he admitted. I knew the honesty would play well, but I needed to say it, to acknowledge what I did wrong, to you, to everyone. Esther nodded slowly. I appreciate that, genuinely. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the sky turn from gold to purple. I saw the Chen Dynamics press release, Min-jun said finally. It's brilliant. You're going to disrupt the entire corporate analytics sector. That's the plan. A hint of pride entered Esther's voice. Marcus is a genius, and his technology is years ahead of competitors. Partnering with him gives Stella Holdings credibility and capability. You're going to be successful, Min-jun said. Really successful, probably more than me eventually. Maybe, Esther smiled slightly. Does that bother you? Honestly, Min-jun met her gaze. It terrifies me, but I'm proud of you. Is that strange? Very strange, Esther agreed, but also kind of nice. Another silence, this one less heavy. I'm not going to sabotage you, Min-jun said suddenly. I hired an investigator, Jung Hae-won, to monitor your activities. I was planning to undermine your deals, steal your clients, make sure Stella Holdings failed. Esther raised an eyebrow. Was planning. I'm going to call him off, Min-jun said. You deserve to build your company without me trying to tear it down. That's not competition, that's cruelty, and I'm trying to be better than that. Esther studied him for a long moment. Who are you, and what did you do with Kang Min-jun? I'm asking myself the same question, Min-jun admitted, but I think maybe this is who I was supposed to become, before the money and the power and the ego got in the way. Esther's expression softened. I never hated you, Min-jun, I need you to know that. I was furious, hurt, betrayed, all of those things. But underneath it all, I remembered the man I married. The one who worked 18-hour days because he believed in his father's vision. The one who donated anonymously to children's hospitals. The one who cried at our wedding because he said he couldn't believe someone like me would choose him. Min-jun felt something tighten in his chest. I forgot that version of myself. You did, Esther agreed. But maybe you can find him again. Not for me, we're not going back, Min-jun, that chapter is closed, but for yourself, and for the people who depend on your leadership. I'm going to try, Min-jun promised. And Esther, I really am sorry for everything. I know, she said quietly, and I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger is exhausting. I'm choosing to let it go. She checked her watch. I need to get ready for my panel, but Min-jun, compete with me. Build Kang Industries into something amazing. Push me to be better. That's how this industry grows. Just do it with integrity. I will, Min-jun said. Esther turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, that speech today, that was the man I married. I'm glad he's still in there. She walked away, leaving Min-jun alone with the sunset and the possibility of redemption. 6 months later, the transformation of Kang Industries didn't happen overnight. Min-jun started with small changes, weekly meetings with department heads where he actually listened instead of dictating, employee feedback surveys that he read personally, a restructured bonus system that rewarded innovation and collaboration, not just individual achievement. Some executives resisted. A few left for competitor companies, but slowly, gradually, the culture began to shift. Sarah Cho, who'd been offered a position at Stella Holdings, chose to stay at Kang Industries after Min-jun gave her full authority over a new innovation lab with a $20 million budget. Michael Park, the financial analyst, accepted a promotion to CFO after Min-jun implemented his suggestions for more transparent accounting practices. Even Director Kim's daughter, Jaya, decided to remain. though she negotiated equity and a seat on the strategic planning committee. Kang Industries' stock price initially dipped when news of Min Jun's soft, new approach spread. But within 4 months, it had recovered and climbed higher as investors recognized the long-term value of sustainable growth over short-term exploitation. Meanwhile, Stella Holdings thrived. Esther's partnership with Chen Dynamics revolutionized corporate analytics, and her firm quickly became the go-to consultant for companies wanting to modernize their operations. She recruited top talent, pursued ethical partnerships, and built a reputation for integrity that attracted clients tired of cutthroat tactics. The business press ate it up. From trophy wife to tech titan, Esther Lee's remarkable rise. Min Jun read every article, felt the sting of his past mistakes in every headline, and used the discomfort as motivation to keep improving. They saw each other occasionally, board meetings when their companies partnered on industry initiatives, charity galas where Seoul's elite gathered, conferences where both were invited to speak. Each interaction was professional, cordial, devoid of the romantic history that had once bound them. And yet there was something else there too, mutual respect, genuine admiration, the recognition that they'd both grown from the wreckage of their marriage. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Min Jun received an unexpected invitation. Stella Holdings was hosting a celebration for its first anniversary, and Esther had personally invited him to attend. Min Jun almost declined. The optics were complicated, and part of him still felt the ache of what they'd lost. But he also felt curiosity, and maybe, underneath everything else, a desire to see the woman who'd changed his life by refusing to accept the limitations he'd placed on hers. The event was held at a rooftop venue in Gangnam, overlooking the Han River. 200 guests mingled under string lights in Seoul's night sky, investors, employees, partners, friends. Esther stood near the center, radiant in an emerald green dress, laughing at something Marcus Chen was saying. She looked happy, genuinely, deeply happy in a way Min Jun realized he'd never seen during their marriage. He approached slowly, waiting for a break in conversation. When Esther saw him, her smile was warm. "Min Jun, I'm so glad you came." "Congratulations," he said sincerely. 1 year of Stella Holdings. You've built something incredible." "Thank you," Esther gestured to the crowd. "It's been the hardest and most rewarding year of my life. Turns out, running a company is easier when you're passionate about the mission." "And what is your mission?" Min Jun asked. "Creating spaces where people can be their best selves," Esther replied. "Where talent is recognized, ideas are valued, and success is measured by more than just profit. Revolutionary, I know." The gentle sarcasm made Min Jun smile. "Sounds familiar. I've been trying to implement something similar at Kang Industries." "I've heard." Esther's expression turned approving. "The innovation lab, the equity programs, the transparency initiatives. People are noticing. Min Jun, you're changing the company's reputation." "I had a good teacher," Min Jun said quietly. They stood in comfortable silence, watching guests celebrate. "I've been thinking," Esther said eventually. "Stella Holdings and Kang Industries could partner on something. Not a merger, we're both too independent for that. But a joint venture, maybe. Your manufacturing expertise combined with our analytics technology. We could create something neither of us could build alone." Min Jun considered it. A year ago, he would have seen the suggestion as a trap, a way for Esther to infiltrate his company. But now he recognized it for what it was, an opportunity. "I'd like that," he said, "on one condition." "What's that?" "You lead it," Min Jun said. "The joint venture. You make the decisions, build the team, drive the vision. I'll provide resources and support, but this should be your project." Esther looked surprised. "Why?" "Because you're better at this than I am," Min Jun admitted. "And because I'm learning that real leadership means recognizing when someone else should be in charge. My ego doesn't need to be attached to everything anymore." Esther's eyes shimmered with something that might have been tears or might have been pride. "Thank you, Min-jun, really." "Thank you," he replied, "for not giving up on me even when you gave up on us." "I never gave up on you," Esther corrected gently. "I just refused to keep sacrificing myself while you figured out who you wanted to be. There's a difference." Min-jun nodded, understanding now what he'd been too blind to see during their marriage. Love wasn't enough when it came without respect. Partnership required both. They would never be husband and wife again. That story had ended, definitively and necessarily. But maybe, just maybe, they could be something better. Allies, collaborators, two people who'd hurt each other, learned from it, and chosen growth over bitterness. To Stella Holdings, Min-jun raised his champagne glass, and to the woman brave enough to build it. To second chances, Esther countered, touching her glass to his, and the wisdom to recognize them when they appear. They drank, and in that moment, Min-jun felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. 2 years later, the joint venture between Stella Holdings and Kang Industries had revolutionized sustainable manufacturing in Southeast Asia. The project, called Genesis Initiative, combined cutting-edge analytics with ethical production practices, creating a model that other companies scrambled to replicate. Min-jun and Esther co-presented at the Asian Business Summit, their chemistry on stage professional but undeniably powerful. Journalists wrote about their remarkable transformation from bitter divorce to business dream team. Kang Industries stock had reached all-time highs. Stella Holdings had expanded into 4 countries. Both companies had received awards for workplace culture and innovation. And Min-jun had learned the most important lesson of his life. True power wasn't about control. It was about trust, collaboration, and the courage to admit when you were wrong. He thought about this one evening, sitting in his office as the sun set over Seoul. On his desk sat 2 photographs, one of his parents on their wedding day, his father looking at his mother like she was the entire world. And one from the Genesis Initiative launch event, Min-jun and Esther shaking hands, smiling, embodying the partnership he'd been too arrogant to build when they were married. His phone buzzed, a text from Esther. "Board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late, and actually read the materials this time." Min-jun smiled, typing back, "Yes, ma'am." 3 dots appeared then. "That's yes, Chairwoman Lee, to you." Min-jun laughed out loud. The empire he'd inherited from his father had been built on ambition and authority. The empire he was building now, with Esther, with his team, with humility and purpose, was built on something stronger. Respect. And in the end, that made all the difference. The end. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. What would you do if you discovered your partner's betrayal? Would you seek revenge or redemption? Let's discuss. And don't forget to subscribe for more compelling stories about love, power, and transformation. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Korean drama Billionaire CEO, divorce story, revenge and redemption. #power couple business romance second chances.